Welcome to AVAIYA, Monica.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite. I love being here.
Yeah, love having you here. And I'm curious if you'd start us off with, since you help people with all of these mystery illnesses, how did you get into this work? And I know that you have your own story there. So can you share about that?
Yeah, well, I actually started getting really crazy symptoms in my mid to late 30s, and nobody could give me any answers. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's probably just perimenopause. Like, that's supposed to solve it for me. And in my case, it turned out that I had been born and raised vegan. And in my case, I had a severe choline deficiency that over time had caused problems with my body's ability to dump toxins, and it affected my nervous system, my sleep, and my ability to digest fats, and a lot of other symptoms that could be written off with like, oh, you're approaching midlife. No, there's something wrong. And so I did this detox program at the time that triggered it because of the fact that I couldn't dump toxins and got extremely sick. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so eventually, after years and years of going from doctor to doctor and not getting any answers, I was, that's how I kind of fell into this. And I found someone who did this similar kind of technique. And then I finally got my health back and I could eat food again and sleep through the night and not feel like a crazy person.
Wow. Yeah, so interesting. And did you end up no longer being on a vegan diet after that?
Yes, that's a very good question. I had to go paleo to get my health back. And it was difficult because, and some people know this about me, some don't, but my dad's a pretty famous animal rights activist. He kind of was one of the people who started the whole movement back in the 70s. And he started, him and PETA started in our living room. The people from PETA got into animal experimentation work, and my dad got into exposing factory farming. And so as a result, I was raised in a really specific way. So it was a big deal for me when that time came to come to the conclusion through all of the different people that I went to over the years. And so scared to try it and everything because I had been born and raised that way. And then realizing that what a big difference nutrition plays in your body's ability to not only repair, but to function.
Yeah, so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I was
Yeah.
vegan off and on for years. I'm not any longer, but I
Ah,
was for a long time. Wasn't raised that way, but I was definitely in that world for a long time. So I'm glad that you were able to obviously restore your health and do what you needed to do to get back to a healthy
yeah.
body. In your work, you talk about 5 layers to illness. What do you
Yes.
mean by that, and why does a person start to feel symptoms?
So this is really interesting because so many times, and this was myself included, people go to the doctor, and back in the day, you used to go to the doctor and go, okay, I have A, B, and C symptoms. And then they would run labs and they would go, okay, here's what's going on, blah, 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 and do this, this, and this, and you'll be back to normal. Not anymore. So what happens is we still go through these same 5 layers to the point where we get symptoms. We're just getting the symptoms sooner than we used to get them because there are so many more things that are impacting our body today than there were 20, 30 years ago. So I'm going to explain that. The very first layer that everybody goes through is toxicity. And that can be from even vaccines back in the day when you're a kid, because back when I was born in the 60s, as many of us in menopause were born in the 60s and 70s, we had a lot less vaccines growing up than they do nowadays. And so, that kind of thing, metal fillings from back in the day that they don't do as much now, and so a lot of the people in our age group are dealing with very specific toxins, and it could be chlorine and from that now they put in the tap water. They didn't used to do that back in the day. So there's all these things like that. Nonstick cookware, we didn't used to do that back in the day. The list goes on. And so those toxins build up, and over time, that inflammation starts to impede your body's ability to make the digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid you need to actually use your food. So then the second layer we call digestion, because now the toxins have gotten to a point where you can't digest properly. And then the next layer is allergies. Now, allergies are an inflamed immune response. So when the cumulative buildup gets to the point where now your digestion's not working, you can't break down your food. Now you're developing food allergies, even environmental allergies, because your immune system is becoming suppressed to a point where it's behaving erratically and it's giving you messages that it's not happy. Now, the fourth layer is pathogens. And let me explain what I mean by that, because we all are mammals. We get exposed to buggies like fungus, bacteria, virus, parasites, and your body's ability to fight them off is how you stay well. When these 3 layers are suppressing your immune function, these pathogens are just opportunists. So that just means that your bouncer's not at the door to fight them off. So they can just come on in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you will get symptoms, obviously, from this kind of thing, but it may not be enough to show up in labs yet. And so the last and final layer is disease, where it does show up in labs. You've been diagnosed with a specific condition or disease, and then they try to treat it with medication. But as you can see, all of these underlying things that led up to that, if those don't get addressed, then everything you do is just a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And like, do you see, like you said, when you were, I believe you said in your 30s, this is when you had issues and people were saying, oh, maybe it's just perimenopause. Is that something you see a lot of, like oh, it must just be that?
Yeah. And at the risk of sounding like typecasting, there is this phenomenon out there, and I've heard this. I do treat men, but I also treat a lot of women, and there is menopause, just FYI. But there's this sense of being not taken seriously and treated like a hysterical female, which is really demoralizing, because I went through that and I was like, how is this happening at my age, where you go in and you have these legitimate concerns and you start feeling so invalidated that you don't even want to tell the next doctor and the next doctor, because you're almost being shamed for saying you have these symptoms, because they feel like you're being dramatic, or it's not as serious as you're making it sound. Have you tried Pepto-Bismol? Like, you know, and it's like, no,
you must be being hormonal.
Yeah, there is this phenomenon of, ladies, and at this age, this is just life, and guess what? Even if it is, let's just say hypothetically, okay, it's menopause. But you can still fix that. You can still address what's causing the symptoms, even if it's because you're going through menopause, because everything's about balance in the body. And if your hormones are out of balance as you're aging, there are things you can do to address that with nutrition, with supplementation, that can help you, because it addresses all these underlying issues. For example, if you have heavy metals, and we talked about metal fillings as an example, but there's a lot of different reasons. Some people have had copper IUDs in the past. There's all kinds of things. And those metals impact your thyroid function, even if your labs are normal. That now your hormones are off, period, end of story. So dealing with the metals a lot of times gets your hormones back in balance. And a lot of people don't realize how easy that could be.
Gotcha. And so how does one deal with the metals? Like, what does that look like?
So, I mean, everyone's different. There's a lot of different stuff out there. When we work with patients, we have a whole protocol that addresses everything in the 5 layers to illness. So we're dealing with, if we're not pulling out the chemical and metal toxins that are stuck in the tissues and in the body, at the same time that we're helping the body to kill these pathogens, at the same time that we're helping the body with what it needs for digesting and breaking down the food, and dealing with the underlying inflammation in the endocrine organs, like the pituitary or the ovaries, we do the whole thing all at the same time, because that's how the body heals properly. There's a lot of people out there that will chelate metals. I know I tried everything when I was sick, so I know everything that's out there because I did all of them. But they have like where they'll do hair analysis to determine your metals, and they'll do chelation where they use IVs to pull it out. I'm not a fan of chelation, but a lot of people swear by it. And then you have to make sure you're replacing minerals, because the body thinks the metals in your body are minerals, so it'll hold on to the metals because it's the same chemical composition. Yeah, so there's like a lot of different systems out there, and that's just how we do it with our people.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And you may have just touched on this a little bit ago, but why do you think that doctors tell people nothing's wrong? I know a lot of women will get a bunch of blood tests done or what have you, and come back with no answer. Any thoughts on why that is?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is
AVAIYA has changed my life.
AVAIYA has made me the woman I am today.
AVAIYA is my home.
AVAIYA is personal freedom.
AVAIYA is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about AVAIYA.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, AVAIYA, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.